Welcome in PFF NFL podcast. I'm popping. Steve Palazzolo here with Sam Monson.
Wow, you're too loud all the time.
You're too loud.
I'm not too loud. Turn me down. Turn you down.
How we
Turn
doing?
everybody down.
Week 9.
Yeah, week 9 of the NFL season in the books. So we're more than halfway through.
Yes.
For the first time.
We officially more than halfway through the
That's
NFL
week 9,
season.
right?
Yeah, man. Let's get into it. It was a bit of a smaller week overall.
Okay.
Do you have anything else to discuss, actually? Any banter?
No
Banter today?
No banter. You?
I just want to say thank you.
For what?
You lent me your massage gun thingy
Yeah.
for YMCA recovery. So we hooped it up on Friday.
Yeah.
And, my quest to become a high-end
People will know these
Y
things,
player.
right? Because they're everywhere on, like, Instagram and Facebook. These, like, ridiculous gun things.
Yeah.
Like, fire into the muscle and, would do whatever they do.
Yeah, so it saved your calf. You
Right.
you lent it to me.
My calf was giving me jip. And
Lent it to me.
rather than investigate like a physio, because it kept happening, right? And it wasn't even like I was pulling it. It was just, it would get.
This is not an ad, by the way.
No,
not
it would
an
get
ad.
stupidly. So I don't even know who the company is that made that thing. So
Maybe
I
we
couldn't
should.
advertise it if I tried.
Maybe we should pick them up as a sponsor.
Yeah.
Work for me.
But rather than like investigate a proper physio and drive somewhere and get some guy to grind on my calf, I was like, well, let's buy one of these things, right? Let's take the pneumatic drill to it and see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, well, I'm screwed anyway. And if it does, it probably costs about the same, and I'll have it, long term. And it worked. I went to town on my calf with this thing, like,
Turns out your decision.
and it hasn't been sore since.
So it saved your calf.
Yep.
And I'm over here. It takes me a week to recover from one game.
Right.
You lent it to me.
So now I'm like, well, I've got this thing sitting here that I bought for a calf that's been fine since I used it, so you might as well just go nuts, Steve.
It's a game changer. You're
Take
just
it
sitting
away.
there watching NFL football, just grinding away at all your sore spots. It's great. So I feel good. So my quest to become a high-end Y player,
Yeah.
moving in the right direction.
Firing. Like I say, you felt like you were back to your early 30s again.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Shaved a good couple of years off it.
It really did, right? Like 40's much further away now.
Yeah.
And I feel good about that. I think if I just start training a little bit more, you got the recovery component going.
Uh-huh.
I hit a lefty hook the other day. I mean, it's all going well.
Yeah. You were playing well.
High-end
Good.
Y player.
Mhm.
And you, most improved player. Like in PFF terms, we said you're creeping up towards 50.
Right.
Like a 50 overall.
50 would be a big benchmark for me. If I could get above 50 on a consistent basis, that would be monstrous given my starting point.
You started with like a Garrett Bradbury week 1 pass blocking grade.
Right. I started with the Elfline Bradbury, single digits area.
Yeah.
And have been creeping
If
up.
you started there, maybe you're not at 40 yet, but we're getting there.
God, really?
We're getting there. All right, let's get into the Week 9 action. Let's start. Let's remember what happened Thursday night. San Francisco 49ers remain undefeated. Now the last remaining undefeated team, 28-25 over the Arizona Cardinals. This was the best game of the season by Jimmy Garoppolo, just consistently making plays on third down, tight pressure, just a good feel. I mean, this was like the Garoppolo game that the Niners were waiting for, and that's scary because they've been doing
it most of the time.
They've been doing it with him just playing okay for the majority of the season.
Yeah, that's what we're saying, is that, it's kind of frightening because their quarterback isn't playing particularly well, at least up until this point. And if he does, like, that becomes a real problem for everybody else because they're already tough to stop, and the quarterback, the most important player on the team, has not been playing particularly well. But, yeah, he was in this game. George Kittle remains absurdly good. Budda Baker made a couple of plays on him earlier in the game. So then Kittle just took him out behind a woodshed for a touchdown, beat him like twice in the same play, roasted him off the line, and then stiff-armed him to the ground later in the play. Kittle is a beast.
Yeah, Kittle's pretty awesome. The Cardinals, I just think they're just a little overmatched right now. Your boy Andy Isabella, though, tried to keep them in it.
Turns out he's alive still.
88 yards where he was just, faster than everybody on the field.
Just about.
Feels like the type of guy. I mean, I know that was late in the game, but this was a day for your guys. Kenyan Drake, it looked like a really nice fit.
Genuinely, Kenyan Drake in that offense will look like a superstar because it's so again, it's this idea of running backs being somewhat of a product of their environment. That offense keeps guys out of the box, makes every run a run into space, which is what Kenyan Drake does well.
Yeah.
Like David Johnson is a really good back, but Kenyan Drake is made for this type of offense and looked fantastic.
For sure. I think that's I think that bodes well. Patrick Peterson had a rough game, one of his worst grades of his career in this one for the Cardinals. And, the Niners defense wasn't as dominant. And I think that's one of the things we continue to harp on. It's really tough to bank on dominant defensive performances week after week. We saw it with New England last night. We saw it with San Francisco. So offense will continue to dictate things, but the Niners finding different ways to win, so that bodes well for them, as we said at the top. Let's get into yesterday's action, starting in London. Texans 26, Jaguars 3. I think a lot of people are talking about two things here. Deshaun Watson's MVP candidacy, continuing to pick up steam. I know Russell Wilson's, the guy, but Watson's at least in the conversation. And losing a little bit of luster off our guy Gardner Minshew, or is that a little overblown?
I don't think it's overblown. He wasn't particularly good. He had a pretty stinking fourth quarter as well. One of the things he was doing well, which is had a little bit of that Deshaun Watson thing about him, which is when the chips are down, that's when he was playing at his best. He was executing some of these situational drives that were really important. That went away completely in this game. Look, he is. I think some of the hype was always a little bit out of control, but he's a player that has definitely shown some stuff. But now he's got to fight to try and keep in that job because obviously Foles is on the way back. They gave Foles a significant amount of money. Minshew had to play at a certain level to have any shot of winning that job outright before Foles came back, and I think that's starting to erode over the weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a huge difference between Foles and Minshew.
Neither do I, but one guy they've already committed decent money to, so I suspect that will be where the move goes.
At the same time, figuring out what you can do with Minshew seems really valuable as well.
Yeah.
Still fumble still an issue for Gardner. On the other side with Watson, only took one sack, broke free from a bunch again. He's a fascinating guy because he's listed at 6'2", 220, but he's slight of build. He breaks out of sacks like you expect Big Ben or Josh Allen or Cam Newton to break out of sacks. He is as tough to tackle as any of those guys. There's not a whole lot of quarterbacks around the league like that, especially, and I don't think people expect it from Watson. I think they're going to start being a little bit more careful, trying to make sure that, like when you're with Big Ben, you don't just try to hit him, like you try to like jump on his back and just kind of like hang out there and let other people come and help you out.
I think first and then take him down.
I think people are going to start being a little bit more controlled when they try to sack Deshaun Watson.
His ability to make throws, though, with guys like hanging off him and dragging him to the floor is ridiculous. He's actually able to put the ball. It's one thing to get rid of the ball, just to get it out of your hands and avoid the sack and put it vaguely near the guy you're aiming at so that it's not grounding. But his ability to actually accurately deliver a pass in those circumstances is insane. Like, every now and again, you'll see a player do it, once. But he's doing it every week. Like, there's at least one of those plays every single week where he's getting rid of the ball as he's being dragged to the ground and putting it where it needs to go, like, accurately.
Yeah, passer rating of 93.8 under pressure this year. We always say, that's not exactly what you want to bank on, but he's also been excellent from a clean pocket as well. So Watson playing extremely well. The Texans' O-line is banged up, didn't have Laramie Tunsil. They weren't great yesterday. And I wasn't expecting, we keep questioning the Texans secondary and, holding to Jacksonville to 3, an offense that had been doing some nice things for the majority of the season. That bodes well for Houston.
Yeah, huge game from Garyon Conley, who, hasn't been there very long, but he was targeted 12 times, gave up 4 catches of 26 yards, and had a bunch of pass breakups.
Got Jonathan Joseph back for 40 snaps, playing all right.
Now, granted, a lot of that came against Chris Conley, who's not the toughest cover in the world, but still.
The Conley battle.
Conley on Conley crime.
Yeah, I still just, I think we're going to mention it all year. It's going to point back to Houston's, their back 7. And if Conley keeps playing, Garyon Conley keeps playing like that, then that was a good pickup. That's why they picked him up. And the Texans taking control now in the how hard could it be AFC South, right?
Yeah, this was an interesting game because
they tied with you.
The first game with no J.J. Watt, and it was like, where's the pressure going to come? And Whitney Merciless didn't have the best game in the world. Brennan Scarlett picked up the slack, 2 sacks, a couple of hits and hurries as well. that's probably not a sustainable long-term solution.
It's going to be one of those, if you're a Texans fan, it's this team effort.
Yeah.
Like, come on, give me somebody stepping up. Give me a Benardrick McKinney, making some plays as a blitzer. That's, it's going to be a team effort replacing him.
Right. So in this game, that worked, and, obviously it won the game, and it was a big part of it, but that's probably not a long-term fix. They still are going to need to find a reliable source of pass rush that isn't J.J. Watt-shaped.
Texans moved to 6-3, so they are in first in the AFC South. The Colts are at 5-3. Colts did win their head-to-head matchup so far. Let's move on to the Washington Redskins at the Buffalo Bills. A couple nice throws for Dwayne Haskins, but overall just like an start.
Yeah, not good
for the rookie.
What's really annoying is that Dwayne Haskins appears to be sufficiently not good that it's hurting Terry McLaurin. And that's the real shame in all this. McLaurin was able to get everything done despite, Colt McCoy, Case Keenum at quarterback, put in Haskins.
See, the
now
thing
he
about
can't win.
I think people overrate how much bad quarterbacks affect receivers sometimes. Because we judge quarterbacks based off of making throwing turnover-worthy plays and stuff like that, unless you're just horribly inaccurate and you're missing most of your throws.
Mm-hmm.
And not every bad quarterback is bad because they just miss a million throws. You could still have wide receiver production.
You can, but you also it's not just missing throws; it's not taking throws. Like the Alex Smiths or the Teddy Bridgewaters.
No, I know
those guys hurt receivers because they don't take a shot.
But those are guys that we don't say are bad quarterbacks. That's what I'm saying.
No.
Everybody's like, oh, this guy's got a terrible quarterback, therefore he's going to be bad.
Bad quarterback doesn't necessarily hurt receivers. I mean, look at Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick's propensity to throw YOLO balls every single snap can be hugely beneficial to receivers because you're getting a huge amount of opportunity to make plays. Now, you're also going to see a lot of balls come your way that get intercepted, but you're not getting charged for those, so who cares? All that's happening for you is the ball is coming your way more. So that's good. But quarterback play, unideal quarterback play can massively kill receivers' production just because they're not giving them the opportunities anymore.
Yeah, so as far as Haskins goes, he was interesting because, Chris was highlighting Lamar's low arm angle and everything last night, which I don't think is really all that different. But Haskins was throwing like that yesterday. He looked like he was trying to throw in and around defenders, which worked okay for him at times and not so good at other times. I compared him to Sam Bradford coming out.
Okay.
And I don't even know if he's I don't think he's as accurate as Bradford, but I still think it's that perfect clean pocket, can make some anticipation. You can make NFL-ish throws, right? NFL-type throws. But any of the outside the pocket stuff or avoiding sacks, making special plays, I'm just not seeing it from Haskins. And now it's almost like a couple times he's bailing on pockets and looking to run too early, which isn't really his game. Took a couple sacks he shouldn't have taken. So, yeah, I think it's,
there's not a whole lot
rookie start
to love about him right now.
Tough defense. I mean, you're going up
rough.
against a tough Bills defense.
Yeah, and that's the thing with McLaurin as well, is that he was going up against Tre'Davious White for the whole game. So that's going to make it tougher to have any kind of production as well. But, yeah, the Haskins era has not got off to a particularly auspicious start. And for their sake, they just have to hope that, they get a year out of this, get it out of the way, and then next year, with the whole offseason preparing, next year is when we actually start to see what he can do.
Better playmakers to go with McLaurin. Bills defense bounces back after the rough outing last week against the Eagles, and I still see them trending as the 2017 Jaguars, 2018 Bears, where we're going to get to the end of the season. They're going to have 10, 11, however many wins. And I honestly think you got to look at the quarterback position. Even though Josh Allen is a playmaker with his legs and all this stuff, he's still, I don't know, man, still missing some throws, had a fumble as a runner. It looked all right statistically, but they're winning despite him.
Yeah, he's interesting because he has taken a step forward. He's gotten better at a lot of the stuff that he was bad at last year. I mean, depends where you are in the idea of constantly looking for a quarterback, etc. But I would imagine, are still going to be sold on him at the end of this year, almost regardless of what happens. and
Probably
we'll give it at least another year of seeing whether he can get better or not. This game is also kind of fascinating in terms of game flow because Adrian Peterson had 100 rushing yards at the half and finished the game on 108. So, because obviously they're down, right? They're in a hole. So the run game went out the window. We had to try and pass to get back in the game and couldn't. And obviously Adrian Peterson, not a big factor in the pass game.
So with all those rushing yards, they just couldn't do it.
So it was Adrian Peterson racking up rushing yards in the first half, and then Frank Gore being ground into the dirt trying to get the Barry Sanders number, averaging like 1 yard a carry in this game. It's like we are getting Frank to that number, even if it takes the next 200 carries to get there.
That's great. Josh Allen had the 6th highest percentage of his yards coming after the catch yesterday. Devin Singletary making some plays. A tap pass, a screen pass. So it's just another day with, a few nice throws, a couple misses. And
so Singletary, 20 carries, 95 yards, 45 of which came after contact. Frank Gore, 11 carries, 15 yards, 9 of which came after contact.
Jeez.
Like Frank, it was like, look, we're 100-odd yards shy of Barry Sanders. It may take us 150 carries to get to that, but Frank's getting there. If we have to grind him over the next 9 games, Frank's going to surpass Barry Sanders.
That's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Gore, Hall of Famer.
God, somebody's going to make that argument.
You're so excited by that, right? 24-9, Bills beat
The new Curtis Martin.
The Washington Redskins. All right, one of the best games of the day. Minnesota Vikings at the Kansas City Chiefs. I was the only one who got this game right.
Can we talk about how insane it is that 3 AFC West teams beat 3 NFC North teams this week?
So
without Mahomes.
One of my takeaways, put them on PFF.com, is I keep for the third year in a row, I keep talking up the NFC, and it reminds me a little bit of college football, right? College football, people talk about conference strength nonstop, and it actually drives me nuts. It's like, let's talk about the football, right? And it's all, this Pac-12's not as good, and the SEC's this, and what. But conference strength always seems like it's determined by the teams at the top, right? Well, the SEC has Alabama and LSU and Auburn and Florida and Georgia, therefore they're great. But what about the rest of the conference? And and they're playing the rest of the conference, which could be bad. Who knows? Is that the NFC right now? Because I keep talking up the NFC, and I'm like, and I just don't know who the best team is, right? Every week, is it the Saints? Is it the Vikings? Is it the 49ers? Is it the Seahawks? Like, who are the best teams? The Ravens beat the Seahawks as well. We have yesterday all these AFC teams beating NFC teams. We thought the NFC North is this really deep division. Well, Vikings, Lions, and Packers all lose.
Yeah,
is the AFC actually much stronger than we think?
So the Raiders-Lions one we can put to one side because I think that was at least one that should have been close, and the Raiders were favorites. That kind of made some sense, right?
Yeah.
The Chargers beating the Packers makes no sense at all in any world. And this game makes slightly more sense than that, but definitely on that side of the fence versus the Lions-Raiders game. What was interesting about this game is that coming into it, it's like the Chiefs' defense is bad. They're really bad at stopping the run. The Vikings' dream game is just running the ball 85 times with Dalvin Cook and never having to put the ball in Kirk Cousins' hands at all. So therefore they win, right? Because they're just going to be able to execute their game plan. The Chiefs aren't going to be able to stop at the end. But what this game showed is that even if you suck at something like run defense, you can just completely sell out and actually do it really well by saying, look, forget it. We're stopping the run. We're going to make something else beat us, and that's what's happening. So despite having really bad run defense, the Chiefs were able to completely shut down the Vikings' run early by just throwing bodies at it. And at which point you're like, okay, so the run game is getting bottled up. Now Kirk Cousins needs to make some plays. And he's been on fire, so it should go well. Only Kirk Cousins started to come back down to earth in this game and miss a lot of throws and basically play badly enough that they weren't able to overcome that.
Yeah, it was a lot of, even his touchdowns, it was like wide open in the flat, and there was a lot of screen passes that actually were successful, but he missed a bunch of those throws as well. And, I told you, I don't trust Kirk Cousins in an outdoor road game.
Right. And then when he was under pressure in this game, bad. Very bad. Here's the thing, though. It's good for the Vikings, right? Because we talked last week about there's no way he can sustain a run from like week 3 to the Super Bowl It's too long. He can't play at that level for
get the bad plays out.
He needs to go on he's got a 5-game run in him, right? Which means they need to start his run week 16 at the earliest. So at that point, if it's going to go roller coaster, right? He was up here from week 3 to 9.
We're gonna be down for a little bit.
We need to tumble down here basically until week 16. So 9 through 16, we need 5 crappy games on the bounce for Kirk Cousins so that he can come back up for week 16, 17, run to the Super Bowl, win a championship, right off into the sunset with your $84 million. That's what the Vikings need. Cousins couldn't sustain where he was at. He needs to come back down to the bottom of the roller coaster, and that needed to start now. So this is hugely selfless act from Kirk Cousins to stink for the next month or so.
Team player.
2 months, maybe.
You know they still have to make it into the playoffs.
Well, that's the downside to that. But that's where Mike Zimmer's plan comes, right? We want to run the ball. We want to play good defense. We don't want Kirk Cousins to have to win the game. So, honestly, the Vikings have a reasonable shot at making the playoffs simply by the fact that they beat bad teams. They'll lose to good teams, but that's less of a problem because the playoffs, you've eliminated most of the teams in the playoffs get there because they can beat bad teams.
They're usually good.
Right, but then you have to play the good teams. That's its own problem, right? Just getting there, you can probably get most of the way there by beating bad teams. So I think Kirk Cousins is going to stink for the next month and a half or so. The Vikings will continue to tick over. They'll probably, they're aiming for a wild card at this spot, but that's fine because Cousins is going to catch fire week 17 through to the Super Bowl and win you the championship.
Why can't they win the division?
What? Because they're going to lose against good teams. You're not going to win a division doing that.
Well, not if the Packers lay an egg at
right,
Los
but they're
Angeles.
probably not going to do that all.
Well, yeah, I mean the good news for the Vikings and everybody else in the NFC North is everybody else lost in the NFC North.
Yes,
so don't worry
the standings
about it.
Didn't change at all.
NFC North, the strongest division in football, 0-4.
Yes,
yesterday.
This weekend. It was like the when you get back to college football again, where they go through bowl seasons, like the Big Ten is like 0 and whatever against the SEC. That was what this was like. Just the NFC North, just all of them lost.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We were on here saying, is it the NFC North? Is it the NFC West? And maybe it's just the AFC is much better with New England, Baltimore.
This was a game the Vikings should have won and
Kansas
somehow
City.
conspired not to. I don't think this necessarily – obviously the Chiefs are way better when Mahomes is in there, but I think this said more about the Vikings basically playing badly than it did.
I think we continue to see just, again, nuance to this whole thing. Patrick Mahomes is awesome. However, on both sides of Patrick Mahomes, we have 2017 Alex Smith leading the league in passer rating, being one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL. Then Mahomes hits. Now Mahomes is hurt. Matt Moore is able to go out there. He's tearing it up statistically. Mm-hmm. And you just see, and it's a combination. Matt Moore made some nice throws. His first touchdown to Tyreek Hill, deep bomb. Tyreek gets a step. Hits him, it's over, right?
Yeah.
But then there's another one where he throws up essentially a jump ball, and Tyreek just wins it. Again, those are the ones we separate in our grading. One's a really nice throw. One is Tyreek doing all of the work.
Yeah.
Mahomes was breaking the league because he makes more throws than Alex Smith or Matt Moore, and he also gets freak plays from Tyreek and from Kelsey and the screen yards and all of that stuff. So Andy Reid continues to show that he could take a guy like Matt Moore and get productive offense out of him.
Yes, and it sort of helps that argument that Moore is not grading particularly well overall right now, and yet they're still having this kind of production, which points to Andy Reid more than it does. Look, they're able to stick in any quarterback, and he grades really well.
He had some fumbles in the pocket and stuff like. As far as throwing the ball,
he's making some good plays, but the point is overall he's not doing what Mahomes is doing. The other thing is that it's not showing up yet because he missed a lot of time, obviously. But Tyreek Hill may be the best player in the NFL.
A game like yesterday.
He's absurd. So this was a ridiculously favorable matchup for him as well. What makes him – so he's a really awkward player to talk about.
But
because
Trey
obviously
Waynes –
you've got all the off-season – no, Tyreek. Because obviously you've got all the off-field issues.
I thought you were saying Tyreek Hill versus Trey Waynes.
I was about to get there. But
Sorry.
Tyreek Hill generally is a really awkward player to talk about because of all the off-field stuff.
Agreed.
And like the second you post anything on Twitter, half the people replying are like, wife beater, whatever, right? So separating that stuff and working on the basis that, look, the guy's playing football, so we have to analyze him as a football player.
Right.
He is a truly spectacular athlete and player. And what makes him so amazing is that there are players out there that have blazing straight line speed. Most of those players do not also have stupidly good quickness and change of direction ability, right? Hill has both of them at the same time. So Trey Waynes, like the thing that he does best, like basically his one real skill is being able to run really fast in a straight line.
Right.
And when you run up against a guy that can do that faster than you, you're absolutely screwed, which is what happened to Trey Waynes. He ran up against Tyreek Hill, who A, can run really fast in a straight line faster than you, which makes your one skill irrelevant, and B, can change direction in a way you couldn't even dream of. Like, Tyreek Hill is like a guy driving around in a little Mini, whereas Trey Waynes is operating this giant articulated lorry. Like, they're two completely different things.
It's so true because the fast guys, it's hard to throttle down. So speed plus quickness plus I ask this all the time, right? Because there's been other guys of Tyreek speed in the NFL, as you say.
The two most recent ones I can think of that are in that category of breaking angles and things because you're so fast are Chris Johnson before he got busted and Randy Moss, right?
What about Deshaun? I think Deshaun Jackson.
I don't think he has that kind of speed.
See,
Deshaun Jackson is like regular fast, not you change everything
but he's been
fast.
So, but from like a production standpoint, he's been a consistent deep threat.
Yeah.
That when he is on the field, the whole offense is better for the most part. He's done it for over 10 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
And this is like Darius Hayward-Bay has similar speed. Like all these guys have the Raiders were drafting this guy every single year, the 4-3 guy, right? What makes Deshaun Jackson so consistently good? What makes Tyreek Hill so consistently good? And I think a lot of it with Tyreek is also ball skills.
Oh,
I
huge.
mean, how many of these fast guys have no idea how to track the ball, use their ball? Like even like a Will Fuller, who's really good and has gotten better in the NFL. I don't think anybody's got the contested ability and ball skills and tracking skills that Tyreek has.
No, see, that's the thing. So he's probably the fastest player in the NFL in a straight line. He has amongst the best quickness in the NFL in terms of change of direction skills, and he's one of the best contested catch receivers in the NFL, despite being tiny. So you add all that stuff up, and you end up, all right, who's better? Not just at receiver, who's better across the board? And like, there aren't many names. Like, obviously, you've got the Aaron Donalds of the world, but like Tyreek Hill is a game-changing weapon to the point where you need to assign an entire defense to stopping that and forcing them to go somewhere else.
Well, that's what
instead the Vikings basically said, Trey Waynes, give it a shot, and it didn't go so well.
That's what New England did in the AFC Championship last year, where they legitimately double-teamed him, put two guys on him 12 to 15 times.
That's 100% what you should do against Tyreek Hill, because otherwise you're dead.
So they did that, and Mahomes struggled a little bit early in the game, but by the end, it's like, all right, here's a wide open screen pass. It literally opens things up for everybody else.
But it's still better than just saying, all right, you're a fast guy, give it a shot of covering him, because that's not going to work. Like, not even close. You're going to get killed.
So yeah, he's a game changer. I think again, Matt Moore, a lot of his grades coming through some fumbles in the pocket and all that stuff, but like he's making some throws. The offense is creating throws. They're doing it. Cam Irving's still struggling at left tackle, and that would be an issue if Mahomes was in there or not. That's one of those things that's like a little different with Kansas City this year. I think a couple holes up front on the O-line.
Yeah.
But their defense played well.
That's what I'm saying. They sold out to stop the run. They did a good job of that, and then they basically were able to exploit the fact that Kirk Cousins wasn't good.
Charvarius Ward played a good game. He was a guy, he was one of those guys who kind of flashed last year, has that length and all that stuff. He contests some passes. And then you have like Chris Jones.
Wrecked that Vikings interior.
Playing more on the edge, wasn't it?
Well, he wrecked Elflein multiple times in the game. Like, just drove him back into the backfield.
But they were moving him around. They were having him play a little edge because they were low on no Frank Clark and everything there. So
Elflein and Bradbury both had pretty terrible grades again. Which, we've talked about before. That's going to be a problem for them unless those guys are able to raise their game. The other matchup in this game that was pretty fascinating was Danelle Hunter going up against Mitchell Schwartz. I don't think we talked about it on the podcast, but you and I talked about it off air. The idea that Danelle Hunter was finally having the season that everyone had sort of expected him to have since he was like 19. Grading really well up in the 90s. I think leads the league in total pressures now, or at least certainly is he was only one behind J.J. Watt, who obviously didn't play. So amongst the league leaders in total pressures, first time he goes up against a legitimate, all-pro level right tackle, and Schwartz pretty much won.
Yeah.
Like across the board. This was the Schwartz-Danelle Hunter game. This was what happened to J.J. Watt in week 1 against Ryan Ramczyk. There was obviously the holding penalty in that one, but otherwise basically eliminated from the game. This was one where, Hunter had a few plays, but Schwartz basically blanked him.
And I don't hold that against pass rushers.
No, I mean, I think history says that elite pass rushers running up against elite tackles, the tackle wins.
Yeah. And again, I don't hold it against him because, if you're going to have an 8-pressure game where you just dominate the guy in front of you, sometimes that's extremely valuable. That's going to help you win that particular game. Sometimes you get shut out. All right, so Kansas City, Mahomes should be back, we think, going forward.
Yeah.
So they've mitigated the damage pretty well.
Yeah, they've done a reasonable job, a lot like the Saints, in terms of just weathering the storm of the backup quarterback and haven't really seen it derail their season at all. They're in a good spot now that the superstar comes back.
And will Kirk Cousins be able to play well in a road outdoor game?
No, this is the start of the
decline,
the dip in the roller coaster.
Decline Kirk. All right, sounds good. All right, the New York Jets.
Oh God.
At the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins win 26-18.
The Jets lost a game to a team trying to tank. This was terrible.
Well, Fitz was magic again.
Yes.
We said this would happen.
Yeah. Fitz is so high volatile that sooner or later he's going to string together a game.
He might be QB of the week, 90.6 passing grade.
This was the danger of playing Fitz if you're the Dolphins, that he actually does have the ability to do this in a game, particularly against the Jets. And now you've won a game, torpedoing your number 1 overall draft stock as long as the Bengals are around.
Man. Yeah, and I don't know if the number 1 pick is the most important thing. I don't think there's a slam dunk QB. I don't know if Tua ever was a slam dunk quarterback. You'd like to have your choice of Tua or Joe Burrow or Herbert, whoever you're going to go with. But I think it's all about the draft capital and taking a bunch of shots at the quarterback position anyway.
Sure, but ultimately you have nothing to gain out of this season, so let's get the first overall pick and worry about it later.
Well, I'm going to defer to my wife, Kelly.
Okay.
She seems to think, we mentioned this a few weeks back, that this tanking mentality is just, if that infiltrates the building, you'll never recover.
Counterpoint, if you just suck, that seems to be problematic to crawl out of as well, i.e. the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, but they're talented.
I don't think they were tanking, and yet they still can't shake off.
They were tanking, and then they can't get out of it now.
They can't shake off the
stink
of just being bad.
Half season of good, and now they're all screwed.
Right. They can't shake off the stink of just being the Browns for the last 20 years.
Man. So Fitz played really well. Darnold's still making some questionable decisions. Another disgusting red zone interception.
Yes, it was.
Panic mode.
You're like, what the hell was that? It was like
know.
An underarm shot put into double coverage running to your left while you're under pressure.
Wasn't great.
I mean, in the pantheon of ill-advised throws, that was right up there in terms of what?
Did you hear the trade rumors? What the Jets were asking for Jamal Adams?
No.
Apparently Zach Martin. They asked for a straight-up Jamal Adams for Zach Martin trade or something similar to that.
Okay.
And, of course, anytime anybody does anything, like, the Twitter response is like, oh, you idiots, stupid Jets. And it depends on who's talking here.
Yeah.
I don't think that's crazy
for either side, to be honest.
Yeah.
I might have done that.
You got a playmaking safety, and you have a right guard who's awesome.
Yeah.
Very difficult to replace.
Yep.
But in the creep back toward average world.
Particularly if you're going to get this Lyle Collins going forward, because then you're back to, again, 3/5 of the line being
really good.
You can kind of live without the right guard being great.
Yeah. Adding that Jamal Adams to that secondary.
Yeah. I like that for both sides, to be honest.
It's not that crazy.
So are we – what if Sam Darnold just isn't good?
Oh, I mean, it's all possible.
Because at this point –
he's got youth on his side.
There's quite a lot of evidence that says he's bad at football.
He's young.
And there's not that much evidence that says he isn't. Plus, he has a bad face. Loopy motion is overrated.
Oh, man. You're going right back to.
I read it in a draft scouting report,
Right
so
back
it
to
must
the
be
scout.
true.
See, the thing is, so Cousins' level of play is like here, right?
Yeah.
And his roller coaster is so here we go.
God, every week.
We're going to draw.
You understand that
So
the
this
people
is-
listening cannot
this
see
is-
you drawing roller
This
coasters.
is Cousins, and that's his baseline of play, and it goes like this,
Yeah.
right? Right now, Darnold is just a lesser version of the Cousins coaster,
Yeah.
right? So Darnold has tons of peaks and valleys as well.
Yeah.
His baseline's just lower.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's only 22 or whatever he is. He's
Uh-huh.
young. He'll get better.
Will he, though?
Oh, I mean, trust me. We had the very I don't know. We had a discussion this summer and said the Jets are sitting there at 3. Would you take Kyler Murray?
Yeah.
Right? And it has nothing to do with Darnold. It's just this idea of go get top 8 or top 10 quarterbacks until you know you have them. And people thought we were nuts. And I think George posed the question initially. I think George gave the answer initially. He said, absolutely, I'm taking Murray. Right? And this doesn't mean Kyler's a slam dunk right now either. You just want to continue to creep back toward top 8. Use as much as you can. Right? Like if you're a team, like let's say Kyler's not the guy. Let's say this year, Arizona has a chance to take another quarterback, and he's graded similarly to Kyler. Let's say Joe Burrow. We think Joe Burrow's got as much of a chance of being a top 8 guy as Kyler Murray. If you're the Cardinals, I don't think it's that crazy to take Joe Burrow if you have the opportunity to take him, or Tua. Right? You're the Cardinals. You're drafted in the top 10. Herbert and one of these guys falls into your lap. I mean, this is off-season discussion.
Yeah.
But we didn't think it was that crazy. I'm not going to give up on Darnold. Yeah, he's shown a lot of stuff, but I think, yeah, I mean, it's not trending in the right direction. But this is like the Darnold. This is he's getting better. The end of last season was great, and now we're in this like, oh my gosh, one of the worst stretches of football that we've seen. So he's going to have his stretch of play.
Okay.
In a few weeks. Darnold's going to come back up.
So here's a question for you that long-term podcast listeners will be aware of. Where is the ginger talent now? Because Darnold's playing like crap. Andy Dalton just got benched.
Oh, Wentz stole it back.
Wentz stole it back.
Yeah, Wentz
right.
has it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all Wentz.
Okay. Because I was about to suggest that maybe Ryan Finley's about to become a superstar on the basis that there's no ginger talent
So if I'm
currently
Carson,
being occupied.
So if I'm Carson Wentz, though, I'm worried because he's going to come back. So so Wentz is on bye.
Yeah.
Okay. So for people who don't know the ginger theory, one of our very astute listeners said at any given time there's only so much ginger, red hair, talent in the NFL at any given time with quarterbacks. And this was like a multi-year thesis that was sent to us. It was like Carson Palmer 2015, and then this guy gets hurt, and then
right. And think of it like a Venn diagram, right? So there's only however many gingers there are, that the circle of talent would move itself predominantly towards a specific person.
So 2017, Wentz stole it all, and then last year, Wentz had most of it, and then he gets hurt, and then Darnold becomes the best quarterback in the NFL over the last 4 weeks or whatever
4
it
weeks.
was. Right? So, I mean, it was making perfect sense. Now, this year, I think Wentz has stolen all of it.
Okay.
Now, the fear, as he's on bye, is Ryan Finley goes out there.
He takes it all.
Is he even a ginger, or are we just by association?
Oh, he's ginger.
If he steals it during the bye and then Wentz comes back out against a mad Patriots defense and lays an egg, Wentz could be in trouble.
Yes.
And Finley could steal it all back. I could see Wentz losing it and then Finley and Darnold reclaim it.
So Ryan Finley looks a little like this, right?
Oh, man.
I saw him described as Ryan Finley looks like the guy cast to play Andy Dalton in a movie about A.J. Green.
That's good.
It is. And that's exactly what he looks like. It's like,
we keep talking about Danny Dimes.
We need a vaguely ginger-looking person. How close it is to Dalton is not really important because the movie's about A.J. Green. So.
I did call Ryan Finley Andy Dalton light before the draft, before the Bengals drafted him, and without any real look at his hair. Had nothing to do with the hair.
The point is, though, that this is a great time to be starting if you're him because there is an absence of ginger talent being used that week. So he could potentially have it all.
I think Finley starts out great.
For one game, and then Wentz takes it back.
Let me say something positive about the Jets.
All right, go on.
Folo Fatukasi. Folo Fatukasi. I've abbreviated his first name. 2018 6th-round pick out of UConn, a guy who had 4 straight years of awesome run defense grades for us over here at PFF College.
He's their best graded player, I think,
yeah.
heading into that game, and he played well.
And he played really well. He actually got a couple pressures as well, but he is like as far as like team building goes, and I know that Jets fans aren't going to care about this at all. As far as team building goes, in today's NFL, I love the idea of getting that 2-down nose tackle run stopper in the 6th round. You get one guy, that's his job, the Greg Gaines type of player that the Rams got, all that stuff. So, yeah. How's that?
Weak.
For being positive.
Weak, Steve. That's how that is. Good for Folo, but weak.
Just trying to be positive. How about them Dolphins? The Dolphins banged up in the secondary, too, and they just got guys making plays for them.
Yeah.
A few guys.
Raekwon McMillan is
Jamal
playing well
Wills
this year. That's their positive.
Because
winning this game isn't actually positive for them.
Speaking of run defense,
but
that's where he has excelled.
McMillan has been really good. They also had a really nice play from their other young linebacker, Jerome Baker, covering deep down the field on a post, I think. Absolutely blanketed a guy. That was a really impressive play.
That's what I expected from Baker.
He's got the ability to do that.
Yeah. Really good athlete at linebacker. So, again, I don't think the Dolphins' defense is as bad as – I mean, now the talent is – when you lose Xavier Howard and it's getting depleted.
Yeah, suddenly when you get to play Sam Darnold, it looks quite good.
Oh, man. All right.
Speaking of lousy quarterback play.
Chicago Bears at the Eagles.
Yes.
22-14. The Bears defense kind of holds them close again.
The Bears offense had like 8 yards at the half.
They were at -10, I think, halfway through the second quarter.
Yeah, and then they got to like 8 by the end of the first half. Mm-hmm. Like this was one of the most inept offensive displays you're ever going to see in your life. This was so. You remember we talked about moving to Ryan Tannehill was the right move, if only because at some point you have to make the point that playing like this is not okay.
Yes,
and it doesn't even matter if you upgrade it or not. You just have to say, look, you can't keep going out there like this. This is absurd. There needs to be accountability, and you are being held accountable, sir. Sit your ass on the bench. Trubisky's in that place right now. Like at some point, it doesn't matter. Bench him, put Chase Daniel in. It doesn't matter that Chase Daniel is a career backup whose greatest living achievement is amassing more money per throw than anybody else in history. Put him out there because at some point you need to say, look, Trubisky, sit down. It's not happening. And this is despite, again, much like Tannehill or much like Mariota, right when you're about to say, good God, just take him off the field, he then completes like a deep bomb to Taylor Gabriel. And it's like, okay, fine, we're stuck with him for a little. But no, you need to take Trubisky, pull him off the field, sit him on the bench, and say, look, this is just not all right. You are playing so badly that you cannot be out there.
Let's use this again.
Oh, God.
Here's a circle. This represents all of the plays that Mitch Trubisky makes. This is the issue in the NFL, right? The best quarterbacks, fill up this, they make good plays over time. Mm-hmm. More good than bad. Where we get deceived is when somebody says, hey, I watched Eli Manning, right, in training camp, and he makes NFL throws. And you focus on like this. Like every NFL quarterback can make like this level of throw, right? They could do this. This is how much, like the bad quarterbacks are a good NFL quarterback like this amount of time. But you really want a guy that's a full circle. People focus on like what he can do. Like, oh, look, Trubisky made enough throws. And Eli made enough throws. And Darnold made enough throws or whoever it is.
What you're ineptly drawing here is a pie chart.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, only you're doing it.
Don't worry about it.
Slices that are, you're doing it using slices that, so, there's an accepted way of doing these things, right?
Makes perfect sense.
Like if you have a pie at home, everyone divides the slice. Everyone knows how to slice a pie, right? You're the guy that comes in,
just coloring,
just digs in with a spoon at the side and scoops out just a chunk of the pie. Yeah, that's what you've drawn here. It's not
see when I make my homemade bread too.
Right.
I'm not slicing that thing. I'm just ripping it.
It's not a neat pie slice shape. You've just dug a trench out of the side of this thing.
Is the point being made?
Badly. So ultimately what you're saying is that the difference between good quarterbacks and bad quarterbacks are how large a piece of the pie their good throws actually are.
Thanks. How's this?
I mean, it's still pretty bad.
Still losing it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
So, yes, Trubisky can
make
make good throws. He just doesn't do them very often, and therefore is a bad quarterback right now.
Yeah, the Bortles comparison.
But my point is that
remains.
at this point, he is playing so badly that you can't keep him out there for your own sanity, if nothing else. It doesn't matter that Chase Daniel is not a better long-term option. It doesn't even matter that he's not a better short-term option. At some point, Trubisky has played himself to the bench, and I think that point was like a week ago.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if the Bears are trying to salvage their season, that move would have to be made.
I think regardless of what happens, if it's a short or long-term move, you have to make it. Like, you're not getting anything of value out of Trubisky for the rest of the season. He's not turning his life around and becoming the answer over the next 8 weeks. It's just not happening. You sit him down, make the point that you cannot play at this level, and then figure out if you can salvage him off the field and work him back into the competition. But this is obnoxious.
Huh. That's it, man. They might make it. They might make the move.
They have to. I mean, it's like the Mariota thing. At some point, enough is enough, and that point it's well in the rearview mirror.
And I think my point with this whole bad pie chart thing, though, too, is they're still sitting there in year 3 trying to hold out hope. The Mariota thing's easier. It's like, oh, he's a free agent. We got 5 years of evidence, and the backup's essentially the same as Mario. Like, he's the same guy. Like, maybe there's a spark, right? This is like, once you bench Trubisky, the Bears are either admitting a mistake, admitting he's not the guy, admitting that they need a new quarterback, and that's a tough thing to do. That's why they're doing it. I mean, Gettleman couldn't do it with Eli after 15 years in the league.
Yeah. I mean, that was, I think, more difficult because you had 2 Super Bowls attached to that.
Yeah.
Whereas Trubisky, it's like, all right, look, it's a failed experiment. Nobody disagrees with making the experiment.
Listen, Ben, I don't want to hear about your. There you go. Pie chart's gone. Nobody has to look at it. Whatever the heck that was.
Bad is what it was.
I don't want to hear it, Ben. Back to work.
Nobody
Just
disagrees.
You guys are doing a great job
with taking the gamble or making the experiment in the first place. But the whole point about science is you test a hypothesis, and then once you get the results, you adjust accordingly. You don't just keep going. Well, I tested this theory. It didn't come back the way I wanted it, so I'm going to test it again 58 times to see what happens. No, you tested it. It came back. You were wrong. Move on. Go to the next thing, right? Based upon this learning of this experiment, I have modified my thoughts and I'm moving on to a different theory. The Bears aren't doing that yet. It's like, well, I tested my experiment. The results were negative, but I'm going to still keep playing Trubisky because, well, it might come back positive next time. No, it won't. It's negative. It's wrong. You messed up. Move on. Move on to the next hypothesis. Find a new answer because Trubisky isn't it.
Man,
that's science.
Other things are failing around him, too. Offensive line's not not blocking well in general. The Eagles, one of those classic games where like 15 different pass rushers contributed. Fletcher Cox, Vinny Curry, Albert Huggins, Josh Sweat. Gennard Avery got his 3 snaps in there, including a sack.
Yeah.
Newly acquired.
By the way, so I was saying this yesterday, that the Eagles, they're really good at stockpiling sort of defensive line talent, right? And they usually, they're impressive players. That's why it's impressive. You have this group of guys, all of whom can rush the passer. How are they getting so many people on the field on the defensive line that nobody's ever heard of? Like Anthony Rush is getting 13 snaps. How? They had like 10 people. Was it 9 or 10 defensive linemen who got snaps yesterday?
They love that rotation up there, up front.
9 different players on the defensive line got snaps. Most teams, I don't think, even activate 9 defensive linemen in a game. And the Eagles had 9 of them getting snaps, all of whom got pressure, I think.
That's part of their pass rushing success, though, keeping guys fresh.
It is. It was more just, the Gennard Avery thing, fine, but Anthony Rush, guy wearing number 66, was out there for 13 snaps.
Brandon Graham with another sack.
I know, you missed
This
the
was
boat.
like the anti...
What's he up to now?
He's got 6. And when we talk about the Raiders, I'm going to say, look, I was just a year off in our bets. I was a year off. We doubled down. We doubled down on all of them.
Have you got almost half the year, or have you got a full half the year for him to get 4 more sacks?
No, he's got 7 games left.
7 games left.
They're going to a bye.
To get 4. That's never happening.
Let's bet again.
I'm fine. You want to do it?
I'm feeling the sack. This was like the anti-Brandon Graham game. Only 3 pressures, one of which was a sack.
Yeah.
That's the second time he's done that in 4 weeks. That was a couple weeks removed from the old 11 hurry, no sacks, no hits game.
We've gone from 0 sacks in the first 4 games to 6 of them in the last 5.
Oh, man, he's going to just finish the year at 6, isn't he?
Yeah. You want to?
The 2 bets last year, I thought the Raiders over 6 wins and Brandon Graham getting 10 sacks.
I've basically spotted you half the season in 6 sacks, but you want to re-up the bet?
Nah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll talk after the show. Talk after the show.
All right.
All right, good job by the Eagles. Carson Wentz played solid monster games from Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson, the right side of the Eagles' offensive line. 2 of the better run blocking grades you'll see in the old PFF system, man.
Brooks' season is actually kind of incredible. He's always been a top 5 kind of caliber guard, but there's always been a pretty notable step between him and the guys vying for the number 1. Whether that's Zach Martin, whether it's Marshall Yanda, whether it's David DeCastro, like somebody who was always taking a step and having one of those seasons that's incredible. And Brooks was always like the next guy, the next tier down. But he's coming back. Was it an ACL that he did? A significant injury anyway last year. Coming back within a year and is playing the best football of his career, is having one of those seasons that makes him the number 1 player at his position. I mean, that's kind of insane. He's playing at a legitimate, well, A, it's a comeback player of the year kind of season, but B, it's also he's playing like the best guard in football right now.
Yeah, playing extremely well. So the Eagles, they head to the bye. They're going to host the Patriots in a couple weeks. Colts at the Steelers, 26-24. This was a pretty entertaining game for one that's, you go in, it's like, hey, it's Mason Rudolph versus Jacoby Brissett. Brissett gets hurt early on. Brian Hoyer.
Mason Rudolph against Brian Hoyer.
And again, longtime podcast listeners reminded us.
Bobby.
Nice to see Bobby Hoyer in there. Dave Tuckman. Miss you, Dave. So, pretty good game. Steelers, Adam Vinatieri misses the game-winning field goal opportunity.
We're genuinely blaming that on laces not being out.
Oh, yeah, that was bad, man.
That's
he
what.
didn't even try to spin it.
Yeah, okay, fine. The laces are supposed to be out, but that doesn't turn a shank into a nailed it safely down the middle kick. It just doesn't. Like that kick, the problem with that kick was not that the laces were not spun out. That was a disaster kick that was shanked left.
That affects things.
It affects things.
Greatly.
It does not. No, it does not turn.
Yes, it does.
He made perfect connection with that ball. It did not spin wildly off to the left because the laces weren't spun out.
That's like what you were saying about the Jameis throw. Like if you're about to throw and somebody hits you in the back, whether they hit your arm or not, that affects the throw or the or the fact that you fumble or whatever.
It affects it. It doesn't give you carte blanche. It just.
If you're holding the ball here and you get hit, very easily the ball could come out of your hand.
If you're holding the ball and I do this to you and you launch it out of the back of your hand, right, you have no business being an NFL quarterback.
Donovan Smith weighs 330.
Uh-huh.
He's going to put a little bit more force behind your little push there.
He's also soft.
That's why he's getting pushed into
He's
you.
squidgy. He's got some give to him.
We'll talk later. So the Steelers win. It wasn't a perfect defensive performance, but at the high end, you've got T.J. Watt picking up his 2 sacks. Bud Dupree continues his strong play. What a great game for him. The forced fumble. Our guy Gordon always likes to show. I forget, was it Suggs who did it last year? Those pass rushers, they're coming around the edge, and they know they've won, and they know they have a strip sack opportunity, but they just kind of like hesitate a little bit because they wait for the quarterback to get to the right spot before swatting it. That was what Bud did on his strip sack, so that was really well done.
He's playing really well.
He is.
So this is interesting, right? Is he now is he this year's D Ford, who couldn't get it for like 5 years? And
that's
now,
what I texted
bam.
you. Bud Dupree Ford.
Right. Now we're going to have the good Bud Dupree year, right in time for the contract. And then what do you do?
We got to do more research on this because off the top of my head, D Ford was one of those guys. DeMarcus Lawrence.
I mean, the other thing is
kind of came out of nowhere, but DeMarcus Lawrence did not have multiple. This was like. So D Ford didn't have multiple years of as bad as Bud Dupree. He was not as bad as Bud Dupree for multiple years.
D Ford?
I guess he was kind of close.
D Ford, I think, is a good analog. So DeMarcus Lawrence, there were signs that he could be a player before this.
Yeah, he didn't have multiple years of bad. He was just more of like a platoon player.
Yeah, I think D Ford is a very close analog in terms of basically nothing until this season, and bam. The difference is I think D Ford went from being like nowhere to actually like one of the best pass rushers in the NFL.
And Bud Dupree is becoming pretty good.
Yes, exactly. Bud Dupree is looking good. not one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Like
the other,
particularly when you're the second guy, right? Like T.J. Watt is there dominating. You're one of two. You know, I don't think it's. So I think the pattern is a good analog for D Ford. The difference, like the level he's getting to, is not a good analog for D Ford.
Pat McAfee's trying to tell you.
Yeah, look, I might buy the laces thing if I hadn't seen Adam Vinatieri shank a bunch of other kicks so far this season, and it looked like he just reached 45 or whatever he is, and just forget how to kick. Like, this is not an aberration. This is not a random. The guy almost quit the game because he couldn't kick like a few weeks ago, and then like clearly talked himself out of it, came back, nailed the game winner.
I mean, I don't trust. It's not easy kicking in Pittsburgh.
He does not look like somebody who is comfortable kicking right now.
Outside of a dome.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, he's just been shanking kicks. Like, as I say, I might buy the laces thing.
He still might have missed it.
If he'd been Justin Tucker this year, right? And then, bam, we have a shank to the left, and oh, look, the laces are in the wrong spot. Then I might buy it. But this is a guy that's been scattershot all season long. Looks like he just reached the ripe old age of whatever he is, and apparently that's where the kicker wall is. And then he just forgot how to kick. Like, you know, every now and again, Mason Crosby looks like he's never kicked the ball in his life.
Yeah.
It goes through like a phase where it's like, what the hell has happened?
Why are all these good kickers all dealing besides Tucker? Even Tucker missed an extra point last
It's like
night.
sometimes golfers get the yips, where it's like no matter what they do, they can't connect to the ball, and it's firing off to the right and low and into the hedges.
Yeah, but the yips are rare. Like, again,
but that
I used to play
right?
professional baseball. I don't know if you've known that.
Huh.
Okay.
You should talk about that more.
I should. I ran into like 4 or 5 guys that had the yips out of like thousands. You know, like there's 4 or 5 guys where that happens to. You're telling me the kicking job in the NFL, there's 32 jobs in the world.
Yeah.
Like, out of that 32, that like half of them shouldn't be getting the yips every now
No,
and
I don't
again.
think that's what's happening. I think there's just a lot of bad kickers. But I think sometimes you do see kickers develop the yips. And like Mason Crosby in particular seems every now and again to go through a phase where it's like something is just mechanically falling apart in your run-up connection with the ball. And it looks like he's never kicked the ball in his life. Like Chad Johnson has a better form than Mason Crosby when he goes through one of those phases. Now, he pulls his way out of it every time because he's still there. But Vinatieri looks like he's in that funk right now. It's like something is mechanically jacked with his run-up and connection, and he can't piece it back together what the problem is. Now, if he hadn't had that, I might say, fine. Clearly this was a laces issue. Laces out, Dan. Everybody knows this. But having seen that from him all season, I'm not willing to buy that yet. The Occam's razor thing has me leaning more on the side of this was just another kick that Vinatieri shanked this year.
Right, everybody's right. He probably would have missed anyway.
Screwed him
with good laces.
This is what I'm saying.
Finkel's fault.
Yeah.
Just to wrap up the Bud Dupree discussion, the other guy was Olivier Vernon, who had that freakish
like a
contract
half season
year
of insane play.
Half year, really. But he went from like good to great. What's up, Neil? Good to great. They're gonna do it. That's the book. It's a book he loves.
Yeah.
I read it too. It's a good book. So Olivier Vernon went from good to great. D Ford went from bad to, let's say, great, like high end, right? And Bud Dupree's going from bad to good. So I don't know, just a good way of looking at it. But you know, the Steelers for the first time since what? Harrison and Woodley have two legitimate edge rushers. After like the Jarvis Jones experiment, the failed Bud Dupree first 4 years, they drafted T.J. Watt, and Bud Dupree breaks out in year 5. So that's right. Nice. Minka Fitzpatrick with that long pick 6. This is one of the better games from him.
He turned on some speed in that. He took
off.
Did. He went.
That was a good play, good read, and that was what I was going to say about Brian Hoyer. Like, he played reasonably well outside of that pretty bad decision.
I like that play because it was exactly the same throw that he made for the touchdown earlier, and it's like, it's open again. Oops.
Yeah.
It's like, it worked the first time.
I mean, he
don't
really
see why
played
it
well.
Open this time.
He played well other than that. The first touchdown was awesome. I mean, that was up and away from coverage, up the seam, put it in a much better spot.
Zach Pascal made a few big plays.
Yeah.
Their receivers actually stood up really big given that they were without T.Y.
And I think the most impressive part about the Steelers' defensive performance, and I know they gave up, some points, but they were getting after the quarterbacks, multiple quarterbacks, against the offensive line that we ranked number 1 in the NFL.
they have now those 2 edge rushers to go with a legitimate interior. Like, they've had the interior for years and just have been completely unable to put edge rushers around them. And then they got T.J. Watt. He's taken steps forward. Now Bud Dupree's getting in on the party. Now they've actually got a varied and difficult pass rush to stop.
The Colts did a much better job run blocking than they did pass blocking. If you just look at their grading splits, pretty drastic there. We mentioned Minka making some plays. Joe Hayden was flying around the field making plays. So pretty nice there. I thought, Mason Rudolph on the other side, just another, just an okay performance. Your boy James Washington making some plays.
Big plays. Some really good ones. The pass behind him that he snagged one-handed was really good. I was honestly maybe more impressed by the one earlier where Marvell Tell was all over him. Got his hand between Washington so he couldn't catch it. And then Washington, got to that, picked it off the ground before it hit the floor.
Oh, yeah, that was a nice
That was a really impressive play. There was another one somewhere in there as well.
He made a nice one. So they he had a go ball where Rudolph just kind of left it inside. On purpose, away from the leverage. That was the best throw of the day for Mason Rudolph. Nice play by James Washington. So that was one of those things we expected there. We expected there'd be some chemistry there from the two guys who are so good together at Oklahoma State. Juju Smith-Schuster, not the best game. Deontay Johnson, not the best game, but they did connect. Washington and Rudolph there. So, So the Steelers just keeping their season alive here.
Yeah,
as best they can.
They're really not out of it yet, even though I think they probably should be.
Yeah, where are they? Just trying to scroll down here. Steelers now sitting at 4-4.
They're 500 now.
2 games behind the Ravens in the AFC North, but I think more importantly, when you look around,
wild cards.
Yes, right now the Bills are in the top spot for the wild card, and then the Steelers are right behind the Colts.
Yeah,
who are 5-3. Now the Steelers have the tiebreaker, and we've been saying the Colts as a whole. I know. So Jacoby Brissett went down. Hoyer played. We mentioned coming in, Brissett had maybe 2 good games all season. This game by Hoyer was as good as any of those games by Brissett.
Yes.
And I think that kind of showed that's what the Colts are doing offensively. They're doing a pretty nice job overall offensively. And they're winning not necessarily because of Brissett, but I also think they've won so many close games, and they've just been playing with fire. And I'm saying all that to say the Steelers are still legitimately in this thing, in part because they got some playmakers on D now.
Yeah. No, I mean that adding a pair of legitimate pass rushers makes that defense so much more formidable.
All right, Tennessee Titans at the Carolina Panthers. Ryan Tannehill come back down to earth?
Are we officially done with the Titans? Just forever? Can we stop? Can we stop with them?
Can we just skip their analysis today? No Titans fans listen to us anyway. And they don't want to listen on a Monday after they lose.
It's just they're so unbelievably annoying to try and keep track of what they're going to do.
They play the Chiefs next week, and
they'll probably wallop them.
This will be
25 points.
Mahomes comes back, and the Titans win, 38-12.
Yeah,
against the Chiefs. That's definitely what's going to happen, right?
This could be anything. I've given up trying to anticipate what the hell the Titans are going to do.
I'm just looking at the Titans' schedule: Chiefs, Jaguars, Colts, Raiders, Texans, Saints, Texans. They could win every game. They could lose every game.
That's basically them,
and they'll go 3-3
throughout the year,
and they'll finish 7-9.
Yeah, it's like Jeff Fisher's there, only he isn't anymore.
That's what it feels like. See, Jeff Fisher, everybody, Jeff Fisher, Mr. 7-9, and all that stuff. I think his MO though was kind of winning the game you're not supposed to win and losing the game you're not supposed to lose.
Yeah,
and a lot of coaches have that. They have that ability to kind of get you up for games.
It feels a lot like what the Titans are doing.
I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it, though. There's no rhyme or reason to this. You lose to the Broncos 16-0.
Why is that offensive line playing so badly?
It hasn't been.
Because it isn't that bad, with the possible exception of Nate Davis.
They were bad, yeah, but I'm just saying up until this point, they had been more a product of when they give up pressure, it always becomes a sack. And
I know, yeah. But so a guy like Nate Davis feels like a player that needs a really good offensive line coach. Raw, powerful as hell, coming out of Charlotte.
the ridiculous stance.
Yeah, and you put him with a Dante Scarnecchia, etc., one of the top offensive line coaches in the NFL, you might generate something really special. You put him with, somebody else, and it doesn't go so well because all the flaws are the things that become exposed. And right now he's drowning.
See, I think when you look at, Conklin hasn't been terrible, but you've got regression from Taylor Lewan since he's been back. He's been better in recent weeks, but he was coming off his suspension. Roger Saffold has regressed. They picked him up. And then other than that, Jamil Douglas and Nate Davis, you don't really have high expectations for them, really.
No. I mean, Davis in particular. But
Davis is a third-round rookie, even as much as you like. We liked him as much as you could like a third-round rookie, which is man, he might trudge through a couple of years in the league, become a useful player. That's like every third-round offensive line prospect.
Third-round raw rookie. So, it's very much a product of where you wind up. Land.
Stupid Titans. Can we just kick the Titans off the podcast? Can we just skip their analysis? We're going to be wrong.
The only interesting thing was when they made the quarterback switch, and now Tannehill's gone back to being Tannehill. It's just not interesting anymore.
Kevin Byard's still good.
True. Adoree Jackson made some really good plays.
Yeah.
There was one diving, leaping, soaring pass breakup deal that was it was actually a really good pass by Allen, but Jackson just hit the air and managed to get just enough to be able to bat it away. But it was going to land right in his receiver's hands.
I think that's part of what makes the Titans difficult is they just have this good, solid all-around second. I've used the word solid 8 million times when describing the Titans in the last 2 years. They're just solid. They're solid. They're solid. Adoree Jackson, Malcolm Butler, Logan Ryan. When you trot those guys out there in the secondary with Kevin Byard, you're giving yourself a chance to win every game. But there's also that volatility in the secondary and all that stuff that you can't bank on strong performances every week. That's why they have some weeks where they look great, other weeks not so much.
This was something of a sort of bounce-back game for Kyle Allen for the Panthers.
After we wrote him off last week and said, we told you so.
Went back to being, if I can just put the ball in the right place, I've got receivers who can actually make some good plays. So DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and obviously Christian McCaffrey continued being a dominant, force until he got hurt. But this, Kyle Allen did just enough to basically facilitate his good players, which was ultimately all they needed to do. That was what made them dangerous, is that Cam Newton wasn't able to do that when he was hurt. Kyle Allen comes in, suddenly he is. Now you actually deal with the offense, not with the version of the offense they're currently stuck with. And it functions well when they're able to do that because they've got a lot of talent on there.
Kyle Allen settling into that guy, it's where the big body of work's not great, but there's a small piece of the pie, Sam, that's very intriguing. And the thing is, if you analyze it as such, think about the difference between undrafted Kyle Allen and then first-round Mitch Trubisky. Yeah. It's if you have a small piece of the pie that's encouraging for an undrafted free agent, it's great. This is cool. This is a good thing to have. At worst, he ends up becoming our backup for Cam going forward, and we feel good about him.
Yeah. This
versus Trubisky, and it's man, this small pie, I really hope it gets bigger.
The play of a Kyle Allen or even a Brandon Allen, these guys this year should be eliminating this thing that I've railed against for years, the emeritus backup quarterback position, right? Where you hang on to a guy that last played 10 years ago because
this is making your point.
Right, because these guys are able to come in having been undrafted with no arm talent, no physical tools whatsoever, and play as well as those guys. So why are you hanging around with some guy that last played 10 years ago, is 38 years old, is just racking up his NFL pension plan and costing you more money?
Matt Moore is proving you wrong.
Well, in that system.
Oh, okay.
But
you think Kyle Allen would be as good as Matt Moore in that system?
Yes. The point is you can get that level of play from almost anybody at this point. And
did you just call Patrick Mahomes a system quarterback?
No.
We heard it here first, guys. Nobody's ever said that. Sam Monson says Patrick Mahomes, system quarterback.
Yeah, I didn't say that. So if you desperately need the veteran leadership of that guy, hire him as a QB coach. And if you don't have him there. Taking up a roster spot, chewing up more of your cap than you need.
That's what Dallas
did. Get the guy that's an undrafted free agent because apparently there's no difference.
Let's play this world. How good would Kellen Moore be in Andy Reid's system?
Kellen Moore in Andy Reid's system?
Oh, he'd be so good.
Would he?
Yes.
He wouldn't be able to get the ball to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill would be out of his range
if he
before
threw it
he
early
saw
enough. You go one step drop, throw it as far as you can, let Tyreek run under it. I am telling you, Kellen Moore's touch and feel would be incredible.
By the time he realized Tyreek Hill was going to be open, he wouldn't be able to get the ball to where he was going to be.
Yeah. So, Christian McCaffrey had another sweet game.
Yeah.
He is fun.
He is. He's really good. Christian McCaffrey is a fantastic running back who is, he is the perfect sort of modern-day running back in terms of being equally as good as a receiver as he is carrying the ball. He's very good between the tackles. He's just good at everything.
The other thing, too, I like when you just look at the pass distribution for the Panthers. When you see a guy like DJ Moore catch 7 for 101, and Curtis Samuel 3 for 64, and Greg Olsen has 3 catches, and McCaffrey has his 3 catches, including a touchdown. That's tough to defend. Those are skill sets that are difficult to defend when they're all working in sync with the well-called game and all that stuff. And I thought the Panthers got back on track nicely with that.
Mm-hmm.
So Panthers win.
They did.
And the Titans. Are we kicking them off the podcast?
Well, at least for now. Certainly for this show.
All right, we're done. 30-20, Panthers win.
Lions and Raiders.
Yeah, let's talk about that one.
Madness in the finish. Crazy
it
finish.
Was. Well, let's discuss the rest of the game first. First off,
fine.
We talked about on the podcast the Matthew Stafford aggressiveness and all that stuff, and how we would love to see that from Derek Carr. And that was this game, man. He was making throws.
Yeah.
He looked really good. And I would love to see Carr unleashed more and more.
Unleashed. So this offense for the Raiders is quietly cooking. Derek Carr is playing as well as he's played since that 2016 season where he looked like he could be one of the next great young quarterbacks before he got hurt. They still don't really have weaponry. Josh Jacobs, we talked about him being really good. Certainly on the ground, hasn't made the plays you want him to make as a receiver. But their receivers, they're not good at all.
Imagine if they had a guy like Antonio Brown.
Yeah. But look at the guys that were getting snaps for them. Hunter Renfrow was the guy making a couple of big plays in the game.
That was Carr's making plays. That was the game winner.
Right.
Outside the pocket and creating. That was great.
Yeah. Trevor Davis had a snap. Marcel Aitman had 4.
I'm a big Aitman fan. He had Aitman up the seam.
You just like large people.
He's one of my guys.
Zay Jones played almost every single snap, and the guy's only been in the building a couple of weeks. They had 3 tight ends get significant amounts of snaps. Obviously, Waller being the main one, but Foster Moreau, Derek Carrier, they're making this offense sing without the weaponry that looks like it should be capable of doing that, which is pretty impressive.
And they got a disaster of a performance at center. Yeah. Andre James filling in for Rodney Hudson.
The best pass blocking center in the game, and you go to something that very much wasn't.
Yeah, more in the run game, his struggles. People were yelling at us. I didn't even realize because, we put our O-line rankings. They were yelling at us for not having the Raiders up there. A lot of people were wondering why the Raiders weren't up there.
Mm-hmm.
Only because Josh Jacobs is putting up numbers and Derek Carr's not getting sacked.
Yeah.
When it's first off, sacks are a QB stat for the most part, and a quick passing stat, a play calling stat. The fact that he's got one of the lowest average depths of target, that's why he's not getting sacked.
Mm-hmm.
And then run game-wise, Josh Jacobs going into the week leading the league in the most yards after contact per rush. So it's not exactly a dominant offensive line performance, despite, yes, Colton Miller's taken a step forward, and they've been better. They've been much better, but they're not the best offensive line in the league here.
No.
All right, let's not get crazy.
Yeah.
But this is, I was telling Rick, who's got some ties in the Bay Area, likes the Raiders. I said, this is what I expected the Raiders to be last year.
Yeah.
This is why I bet on them to win more than 6 games last year. I thought that the offensive line wouldn't be as disastrous as it was last year. It's been better. I thought Derek Carr, he's going to, play well enough to stumble you into 6 wins, right? Which is different from Denver having no quarterback and having a home field advantage stumble you into 6 wins. That was my Raiders' reasoning last year, and they really underachieved, but they're doing a nice job this year.
They are.
Better job this year. We were a couple weeks removed from saying, look, they're overrated. They're like a Titans light.
The offense in particular, I think, is moving in the right direction. I'm impressed by what they're doing, given the relative lack of receiving talent around there. The defense is still a work in progress, though. They came up big at the end of this game.
Yeah, you're still I know they have high expectations for a guy like Trayvon Mullen, who's their fourth of their top 40 picks, the actual 40th pick of the draft. He's been okay in his few weeks. Darryl Worley back there. I mean, they're not really trotting out big names in the secondary.
No.
Carl Joseph had that really nice play in the end zone. Why did people try to not like Carl Joseph when he's on their team, and overall he just makes more good plays than bad?
I don't know, but including the Raiders seem to not.
That's what I mean.
Like at all.
Like they've been trying to get rid of him, and now he hasn't been perfect, but he makes some big plays for them.
Yeah. So the end of this game was nuts. The Raiders score. Crazy play to Hunter Renfrow in the back of the end zone with Carr like trying to buy time for like 5 minutes back there. Thought he was. I mean, I can't remember who the receiver was on that side of the field, but there was a guy like trying to shake his man loose for like 5 minutes, and then eventually Hunter Renfrow like flies into the side of the end zone, catches the touchdown. Then the Lions end up sort of getting to their potential game winner, get right into the shadow of the goal line. Clock is ticking down. We've got like 8 seconds left. The Lions don't exactly look like they have any clue what they want to do. And the Raiders call a timeout. The Raiders stop the clock.
And so I was kind of listening to the broadcast. I don't think it was Gruden. I think it was a player, right, that did it?
I don't know. But either way, like of the two sides, the one that looked less chaotic and discombobulated was the Raiders. Like the Lions looked like they had no earthly idea what they wanted to do with this ball with 8 seconds left in the shadow of the goal line, needing to have some clue.
So I know that the instant reaction is to be like, of course, LOL Raiders, you idiots, why'd you call timeout? However, and I know that the Lions looked very confused, but in that situation, the offense generally has the advantage. It's easier for them to get to the line, to call a play, and if you're not aligned properly, if you have one guy out of place, that's a touchdown, right? I don't hate calling a timeout there just to make sure that you're aligned properly. Think about how many times there's just wide open red zone touchdowns.
Yeah.
And all of it is communication and alignment, and it's easier for the offense to communicate in that situation than the defense. Now, at the same time, yes, the Lions were panicking, and I think they were going to get a snap off, but it was going to be very rushed.
Yeah.
That was different from having like
wasn't
20 seconds.
Like the ideal play dialed up for it. It was going to be whatever the hell they could get.
And it was probably going to be like a quick fade, like go like man across the board.
Yeah.
They're going to throw a quick fade, just knock it down, and that was the likely scenario because we're at like 8 seconds when they called the timeout.
Yeah.
I just don't think it was like as LOL worthy.
And then you get to the actual play they run, which of course is you want to put the ball in the hands of your big play threats when you can. So Logan Thomas was the guy that this was thrown at. Carl Joseph.
I couldn't believe Stafford went like old, with his sidearm. This is where Carl Joseph, Joseph made the big play, but Stafford, I couldn't believe he got the throw off. It was like that sidearm. It was actually a good throw, like as far as like getting it to the catch point.
Yeah.
And you got the big 6'7" former QB receiver. I don't hate it, but yeah, when you get Galladay and Marvin Jones,
don't love it.
You have other guys who are incredible.
So that was the
contested situations.
That was the one NFC North loss that made sense to me.
Yeah, that was fine.
The other ones are all nuts.
That was fine. But I loved it. I can't remember if we called it a potential shootout, but I think we said that on the podcast, right? Like a Stafford versus Carr shootout. That's what it ended up being. That was a good game.
Now, do you want to defend Jameis Winston?
I mean, just that one play.
For throwing away the ball like a lunatic?
Got knocked into him.
Because apparently a fat guy touched him.
Well, they didn't lose because of Jameis in this one.
No.
Jameis played, I think we called this one a potential shootout too. You just got Jameis. Jameis is going to make a ton of plays like he did, making plays down the field.
Is there a more ridiculous quarterback or wide receiver cornerback one-on-one matchup in terms of body type than DK Metcalf going up against Jamel Deane?
No. Incredible.
You've got Metcalf, who's like 225 pounds of chiseled, like marble sculpture, going up against Jamel Deane, who is somehow like a munchkin linebacker who runs a 4.3.
I don't really buy the 4.3.
What do you mean you don't buy it? They timed it.
I just don't think he plays like that. Like, okay. Yes. The thing about 40 times is it's like, here's this guy's speed in a snapshot of time.
Well, also in ideal conditions without pads on. Like, the idea of not wearing pads when you're running a 40 and expecting nothing to change is kind of insane.
Yeah, here's my only thing with 40 times. It's a good barometer. It's informative and all that stuff. I like the fact that everybody's under the same conditions to test it at least. But the idea that once you're a 4.3 guy, you're 6 years into a guy's career and you're like, oh, he runs 4.3, and you're not even factoring, like they mentioned on the broadcast, there was the one play where Jamel Deane looked like he was running a 5.3, trying to chase after DK Metcalf on a crossing route just because he was fatigued. Like his Madden fatigue bar was really low. Therefore, you're not a 4.3 guy anymore. They just wore Deane out in this game. And he made a bunch of plays, too. This was one of those games where it's like he broke up 3 passes, but also gave up 9 for 155.
Yeah.
But they were clearly trying to target the big, oversized linebacker-sized rookie corner.
Reasonably so. This game is also full of, like, insane, like, bursts of speed. Did you see Devin White chase down Chris Carson and force a fumble?
Yeah.
Like Carson broke into the open field, was like, took off.
White's
Devin
fast.
White rips after him, runs him down from like 5 yards, just tomahawks down on the ball, punts it straight out of, was that the one that went straight out of bounds? Like in a straight line, White's got some quicks.
Yeah. No, he
Change of
absolutely
direction,
does.
less so, but, you know, running down Chris Carson, he's easy.
I mean, Seattle really attacked everybody in the Bucs secondary. The one thing we liked about the Bucs from a team building standpoint around the draft is that they're like throwing a lot of resources at the cornerback position. The idea, we don't know if Jamel Deane or if Sean Murphy Bunting are gonna stick, or if Vernon Hargreaves can truly turn around his career consistently, but they're at least trying. This was not a great day for them across the board, though. Russell Wilson playing like the MVP that he is, making play after play. He made a fourth quarter comeback that ended up in a missed field goal. Didn't matter. They go to overtime. He leads the game-winning drive in overtime as well. I mean, he's taken a few sacks. Maybe they shouldn't take. Again, he's not perfect across the board, but as far as like just throwing the ball, throw for throw, I mean, he's been at a different level, I think, than others around the league this year.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. That connection he has with Tyler Lockett remains pretty spectacular. DK Metcalf had a big game, largely because he got to victimize Jamel Deane for half the time. But this was a decent-looking Seahawks offense, even if it took them a little bit to get going.
Wilson goes 4 for 6 for 131 and 2 scores on 20-plus yard throws. Intermediate middle, 4 for 4 for 54. I mean, he's attacking all levels of the field pretty efficiently. And this was also the game. We always joke about Seattle and their game flow and what they're comfortable with. They did put the ball in Wilson's hands a lot more in this game because, as they mentioned on the broadcast, well, the Bucs are leading the league in run defense, which is more nobody's running against them because they can pass against them.
Well, also they were trailing for a lot of this game, for most, a decent chunk of this game, and
I could see them being like very uncomfortable with, man, we did it again. We're putting it on all on Russell, and we're not playing defense.
This was as close to that game as we talked about, of them actually needing to lean on Wilson more. 47 dropbacks, and he showed up. Right, this is one of those games where usually in this scenario, you get something less than ideal Russell Wilson. They're like, see, we need to establish the run more. We need to keep it out of his hands, because when we ask him to do this, we don't get as good of an efficiency. This we did. Like, Wilson was absolutely dominant in this game. Passer rating over 100 in every possible scenario. No pressure, blitz, no blitz. Almost 9 yards per attempt. Like, grades well across the board. This was the Russell Wilson game that would sort of shut up the idea that he can't do this.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers.
Now it's only one, and against the Bucs secondary, but still.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the type of game that you want to have. If you're the Seahawks, this is the type of evolution you would want in Russell Wilson's game. I continue to compare him to Brady and Roethlisberger earlier in their career, who they were a little bit more protected by defense in the run game. But then there was a point in their career where it's like, Big Ben, go throw the ball 40 times and win. Brady, go throw the ball 50 times and win. Like, just go do it. Wilson, drop back 47 times, as you said, and goes 29 for 43 for 378, 5 touchdowns. Other than, again, a couple of those sacks and a couple, difficult misses. I mean, it's a dominant outing from Russell Wilson. The stats matched our grade.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's ever going to become that high-volume passer compared to those other guys, but it's important, I think, for him to demonstrate to the team that he can do it, because they clearly don't think he can. Like, they think that is a weakness of his game, and as I say, it's one game against the Bucs, so it's not like it's going to completely change their mind. But it's something to point to and say, all right, look, he can do this. It's definitely in his makeup.
I tweeted out that the Seahawks looked like the Chiefs on their opening drive because they just didn't run at all. It was like play action and boot and screens, and it was just – I love that well-scripted, and the defense feels like they're just running in circles every single play. You got them moving horizontally one way, vertically the next. You're just moving them all over the place. And that was the opposite of like body blows and establishing the run that Seattle usually likes. So I thought they played that well. They scored 40 points, and that's good offense.
Yeah.
All right. Cleveland Browns at the Denver Broncos. 24-19 win for Denver. Yeah. Brandon Allen making his first NFL start.
Yes. Small hands.
He's got his little hands. He did an okay job. I mean, he did fine. I think the 2 touchdowns he had, pretty inflated by an incredible play by Cortland Sutton.
That was
winning.
Impressive how much credit people were trying to give Brandon Allen for that throw. It's like Sutton just went up and mossed the guy. I mean,
that was a pass that essentially is broken up. We always talk about the 50-50 ball is really 20-80. It's broken up 80% of the time. Cortland Sutton went and won it. Mm-hmm. It's 30-plus air yards or whatever. Other people are going to give the quarterback credit for that. For us, that's all on the receiver. And then Noah Fant goes 75 yards. On a pass, it's a positive grade. He hit Noah Fant. Nice job.
An obnoxious bit of defense.
Terrible defense.
3 people should have tackled him, and all 3 of them just fell off. It's not like Noah Fant is, Rob Gronkowski or anything. Like, they just fell off.
I mean, that is what Noah Fant's best at, though. Running in a straight line.
Straight line quickly.
Yeah.
Very good. I mean, it wasn't so.
65 yards like after the catch on that play.
Yeah, it's not even like he just broke into space and outran people. Like, he literally just ran and people fell off a tackle. Like, 3 people had you genuinely expect them to make that tackle play, and all 3 of them just fell to the floor and barely slowed him down.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. The Cleveland Browns remain an exercise in everything going wrong. Whether it's getting mossed when you're in good coverage against Cortland Sutton, whether it's 3 people failing to tackle a guy running in a straight line, whether it's Baker Mayfield continually missing guys that he should hit in the back of the end zone, whether it's so every time Odell Beckham plays a game, you get the highlight reel of him pregame warm-up where he's just snagging passes out of the air one-handed as if it's nothing, right? And then you get him playing in a game right now, not making catches that he should make. Now, he actually had a reasonable game. Got Chris Harris a few times, like really narrow plays where Harris is right there.
Yeah, right.
And Beckham's just able to make the play over the top or around him or whatever. But he's continually just not making for a guy that's able to do that, you should see more from him on a consistent basis. Because that's next level talent that some receivers out there just don't even have a prayer of. And yet they're able to make some of the same plays that he's not making.
Yeah, what do you think's happening there?
I don't know. I really don't. And I don't understand why this collection of receivers is amazingly unable to get on the same page with Baker Mayfield. I also don't understand why, given the collection of receivers they have, the one guy that has consistently been on the same page with Baker Mayfield is Rashad Higgins. Now, obviously, he's one of the guys that I like to big up
this
to
is
talk
where
about.
You have good reason for this,
right? But
because every other receiver is hanging him out to dry by not running routes correctly.
And even if you want to say, okay, that Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry are untouchable, right? They're in that category of too much money, too much, status. There's no way we can take snaps off them. They are the ever-presence in this team. There's zero reason that Antonio Callaway or Kaderil Hodge should be getting snaps over Rashad Higgins. Now, I know Callaway made a nice play. There was a screen that he busted off and took a reasonable amount, 35 yards or whatever it was.
He can catch and run screens. I mean, he's awesome.
Right, but again, it's
hands.
like your pie chart, right? How many of those things how much bad has there been before that one bubble screen that he took a reasonable distance, right?
Now you want my pie chart.
No, I don't. I'm just saying that as long as you're drawing it up, it's the same logic, right? How much bad has happened with Antonio Callaway on the field before that one play where he busted off and you go, see, he's an athletic talent. We need to feed him the ball. Whereas Higgins is just consistently in the right place at the right time, and Baker Mayfield actually trusts him to put the ball on him. So I do not understand why you do not have him as a far more heavily featured part of this offense, given how badly it's out of sync. He got 15 snaps out of 75 yesterday. Yeah. That's just inexcusable. There's no logical reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I said that the receivers are hanging the quarterback out to dry. It does work both ways. There was a route Landry's running a shallow cross. He's supposed to go under the linebacker. He goes over him. Baker throws it right to the linebacker. Now, Baker's timing has been off on a bunch, and then the receivers have been off on a bunch. Again, like faking like they're going, acting like they're going to run a dig, and then they go, all these things. Yeah. How are they so off as far as miscommunications goes? Because I'm always amazed at how much receivers and quarterbacks are on the same page at the NFL level. I mean, it's amazing, the timing and precision of a passing game. And you come to expect that in the NFL. But when it's off, it's ugly. And it shows how much everything needs to be such precision. So does that always – now, are we going to always point it back now to Freddie at the top and say there's penalty issues, the O-line's underachieving, the receivers and quarterback aren't on the same page, the defense isn't tackling with effort and all that? I mean, does this all – are we going to all blame up top?
This is a fascinating – so the Browns conversation this year is one that cannot be had without nuance, right? And yet it's – obviously this is a world in which nuance is a dirty word and cannot exist. There needs to be something that is the problem, right?
Bring back nuance.
There needs to be one thing that we can point to as the sole source of all the blame. But what's so amazing with watching the Browns right now is how complete the ineptitude is and how wide-ranging and how the fault lies everywhere. So they had a big thing during the game about how Freddie Kitchens had re-emphasized discipline in this game. And had made the point that penalties are not okay, and if you accept penalties, then you become the problem. So they reinstituted like sprints or push-ups or something ridiculous for penalties, right? And it's like, well, so all done, right? Now you can't accept that kind of thing, and that's a huge step. Now it worked, right? They didn't have any penalties on offense in this game, but at the time they were making that point, they had 3 points. It's like it's not like this fixed anything. We just we're not having It's not 1st and 15 every drive, but we still suck. Like, we're still not executing the offense. The only good thing in this team or on this offense pretty much all season long has been Nick Chubb. And even, like, against the Patriots, Chubb ends up fumbling twice. So there's literally no area where you can't point to and find fault, whether it's Odell Beckham not making some of the routine plays he should make, whether it's Jarvis or the receivers generally not being on the same page as Mayfield, whether it's Mayfield missing throws he should make, whether it's him bouncing from pockets.
Or he puts it up to Demetrius Harris, who just has no idea that he's going to jump out of bounds.
You're talking about the one in the back of the end zone?
Yeah.
I think that was overthrown.
I mean, it's a little high, but if he just stops running, he just jumps up and catches it and lands in the end zone. That happens all the time in the NFL.
He's catching that and landing in the end zone. But anyway, my point is everything is wrong with this team. There is literally no area in which you can look at it and say that's functioning fine. There's no issues here. Everything is a disaster. And I think ultimately that does come back to the head coach. Like, somebody has to carry the can for it, and that's his job. So ultimately the buck does stop with him, but the problems are everywhere. It's amazing. Like, the memes right now circulating, given what Baker Mayfield has on his face.
Okay, those are hilarious.
Like,
by the way, I wanted to talk to you about potential Movember stuff. And
oh yeah, we kind of missed the boat. It's already the 4th.
What do you mean?
You're supposed to start Movember on the 1st of November.
But I did.
4th of
I did. I got it.
What?
I just once I lose this, we're
you have to like start it. You have to. The shaving has to commence on the 1st.
We'll talk.
You have to go from nothing. You can't like have a beard and then just randomly decide to shave.
I'm just going to go. I'm just going to grow a stash.
You can't but you have to start from nothing. You can't go from.
I started from nothing last week.
You have no. You can't.
All right. Anyway,
it has to be the stash.
Baker looks funny. The
zero.
memes are hilarious right now.
So yeah, like 18 months as a Brown turns him from like well-groomed Baker Mayfield in a suit into like this disheveled tramp in an ill-fitting overcoat and the most ridiculous mustache you're ever going to see in your life, looking like he's just seen a ghost as well. Like he's standing there, not only looking disheveled like he just crawled out from an underpass, but like this vacant look in his eyes, like he's just seen his entire life taken, ripped up in front of his face and tossed off into the sewer.
It is pretty funny.
And the thing is, like that could well have been what's happened. Like it's one of those things where the photo could easily have been just taken at an awkward moment, and that's what you look like at the time. Having said that, given what's happening to him right now, I could easily see that being his like default look right now. What kind of amazed me though is that they obviously Baker Mayfield. He's one of these guys that grows a beard in like 7 hours. for some reason, but before this game, he decided that the move was to shave it into a Fu Manchu, like Paul Senior handlebar mustache.
Try something.
No, you don't have to try that. This is what I was we were talking outside. Like, I've done a lot of weird facial hair things in my life, right? But most of them you sort of do just for giggles, and you keep it amongst a small circle of people. Though I would not be doing those like in front of a nationally televised game. You know, that's not where you experiment with that kind of thing. This went so badly that apparently he decided to shave it off in the locker room after the game, and somehow turned it into something worse. He somehow took a full-on handlebar Fu Manchu mustache and turned it into something worse, which looked like just I don't even know how to describe the thing that's on his face right now, except to say a mistake.
It's not as bad as how the Browns are playing.
It's right there, back.
I think it's close.
Where we just said everything is bad.
Oh,
the mustache is just another of the things
Can't
that is bad.
Shave were they using the wrong cleats or something too? I mean, everything's wrong.
They were using ineligible cleats. The Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham were not permitted to take the field in the cleats they were wearing, because it would be a shame to ruin the overall fine aesthetic of that brown sludge that they wear as uniforms.
Plus, they were wearing brown, and the Broncos were wearing orange.
Right, everything about this game was awful.
This was just the worst game of the year.
So,
good job by Denver. We mentioned that, but their defense has played pretty well this year. And one of the stories of the season, this Alexander Johnson. I can't remember if we told his story on the pod or not.
I don't think. No, you told it to Austin.
So he is grading incredibly for us right now. He's a 27-year-old rookie out of Tennessee. He was when he was a freshman back in like 2011 or whatever it was, he was one of the top prospects in the nation. He was named A.J. Johnson. He was a fantastic player at Tennessee. I got to research it more, but something happened with like rape charges that were essentially, it took 4 years for him to be cleared. And
Brian
now here
Banks
he is.
Style.
What's that?
Brian Banks style.
Yeah, and I don't know any of the other details, so I'm not saying like, hey, good job, you were fine. Like, I don't know any of the other details other than he's now named Alexander Johnson, and he's playing some really good football for the Broncos. Played 62 snaps, or didn't play any snaps last year, but was active for a game last year, and this year just tearing it up in the middle of the field for the Broncos. So nice game by Derek Wolfe, Mike Purcell, just one of those. They're a 6-win team, creeping toward 6 wins there. Denver, that's what you're doing.
Now Denver have a quarterback that's taking snaps.
They do.
Let's ruin that story.
It's going to really turn their season around. Good job. I mean, Brandon Allen, he was solid. Not 125 passer rating solid, thanks to Cortland Sutton and bad Browns defense / Noah Fant.
Yeah, how many yards did he have? And like almost all of them came on those 2 plays. Like he was okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, Philip Lindsay did a really good job in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Brandon Allen had 193 passing yards and
75 on the Fants play and like 30 whatever on
right, so like 100 of those came on 2 plays where at best you would say he put the ball where it needed to go once and gave his guy a shot in the other one. Like, Brandon Allen was fine. Philip Lindsay was really good in this game.
Yeah.
Like this got kind of close at the end, and then Lindsay basically iced it by making a couple of big plays against his defense.
All right. The
game that made no sense.
AFC West, NFC North matchup. Los Angeles Chargers 26, Green Bay Packers 11.
What in the hell happened?
So this was that game where we talk about, okay, the best way to beat Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, all these guys, keep them off the field, right?
Yeah.
The Chargers go like 8 minutes on their first drive and just take up the whole clock, and they just keep kicking field goals.
Yeah.
Like they're dominating this game and kicking field goals. So you take up half the quarter. The Packers, I think they go 3 and out or whatever. And then the Chargers are just playing this ball control, kick a field goal at the end of the drive type of game. And it's putting a ton of pressure on the Packers offense, which needs to do a better job of, picking up first downs, because if you don't pick up first downs, you go 3 and out. But the Packers ran only 18 plays in the first half. And there was a point into the third quarter where they were averaging 1.8 yards per drop back, including all of the sacks that were taken. This was just an inept all-around performance by the Packers. They got pretty much a garbage time touchdown with like 6 minutes left in the game. But this was kind of like the Chargers team we expected coming into the season, despite not having any of the players that we expected them to have coming into the season. That's how they played. But every time the Packers had a big play or needed a big play offensively, it's like Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa just dominating up front.
Yeah, quietly, David Bakhtiari hasn't had a particularly good year at all. Like, he became the gold standard of pass blocking on the offensive line, particularly at left tackle, and he's had a rough couple of games this year. Like, and now, to be fair, they've come against good players, like Bosa, Engram. The Vikings was the other one where he struggled. So it's not like he's getting beaten up by turkeys, but like
turkey.
You expect him to be a complete. You expect him to lock down the left side of the line and forget about it. And that
this is pretty
really
much his
happened.
Sorry, this is his worst pass blocking season since his rookie year.
Yeah. So that's unideal.
Worst year since his rookie year.
The rest of the offensive line didn't fare much better in this game.
No, it was just kind of rough.
Ironically, with the exception of Billy Turner.
It is ironic.
The number one guard in the NFL.
Rodgers completed 2 passes beyond 10 yards, 0 for 5, throwing 20-plus yards down the field. And, on the short stuff, it was just, 13 for 20 up to 10 yards, or the 0 to 9-yard range. Sorry, it was just like and a lot of that was just like garbage time and, taking the underneath stuff and just a meh performance all around by the Packers offense.
And then there was, again, it's just a failure to make plays across the board. There was a deep ball to Alan Lazard that he just seemed to lose track of.
Was that in the sun? I mean, so that's the other part,
I think so. I think he was just I think it was when you're like concentrating on the hand fighting aspect, and then by the time you realize that you have to adjust to the ball, it's too late to make it happen.
So you could also tell, like, Devontae Adams was still banged up. Like, he caught a ball in space and was just like, all right, I'm going to make a move, but it looked like me on the court, right? My brain saying one thing and my body saying no. Okay, so Adams was banged up.
That was pre-massage gun, Steve, though. You're a different...
Oh, now I'm great. I'm
right.
Loosey-goosey and ready to go. Anyway, this felt like the fact that Rodgers had been tearing it up for a couple straight weeks, throwing to guys like Jake Kumaro and Alan Lazard and all that stuff, that was like a credit to Rodgers for being able to elevate those guys. It's almost like this whole thing went in reverse. Like, when you're throwing to those guys, there'll be some growing pains, and then you kind of get used to them, and then it just went in reverse. Like, if you told me he's going to throw to a banged-up Devontae Adams and Marquez Valdes-Scantling and all those guys, you'd think there'd be some issues with the pass game, and this is when it finally really showed up.
Yeah, so like Green Bay's offense stank, and then the Chargers' offense, I almost call them San Diego, their offense was cooking. Like, again, Keenan Allen hasn't been the source, but Mike Williams had a couple of monster plays.
On Jair,
who's had a rough go of it. Austin Eckler is still grading really well. Hunter Henry was ridiculous. Beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different players for receptions. He looks, again, like, one of the next great young tight ends. He's really good. So, yeah, the Chargers offense was kind of rolling. The Packers just couldn't get anything going. It'd be interesting. So Rodgers was talking after the game about how this was like a good thing, that they started to get a little bit out of control, listening to their own hype, and this is probably a really good thing for them to basically say, you're not that good. You got some work to do. It'd be interesting to see how they do bounce back for that, given that's how he's taking it.
Yeah, I mean, we've always said that about the Rodgers, Brady, Deshaun Watson. Like, when you start to doubt them and when they get that whole, I'm not going to say chip on the shoulder. Yeah, I'm not going to say that.
Okay.
They know how to bounce back.
Yeah.
I'll say that. Rodgers can bounce back.
Definitely.
I expect him to. I mean, good game by the Chargers.
Yeah.
It was death by 1,000 paper cut type game that they did.
Except those Mike Williams plays.
Except the Mike Williams plays where he caught 2 for 102 against Jair. Jair continues to do his Marcus Peters impression. Locked down for a lot of the time, but he gave up 4 for 129 overall in this one into his coverage.
All right, 1 game left.
And Baltimore Ravens 37, New England Patriots 20 on Sunday Night Football.
Patriots have given up like 90-something points all season, and 37 of them came yesterday.
Yeah. Now 7 came from the offense.
This was such a weird game because, like, the Ravens looked like they should have just walked away with it. 17-0 up, and then the sort of typical
muffed punt.
Right. We think we're finally putting a beat down on the Patriots, and then look, a play breaks the other way. Muffed punt, Patriots recover. Suddenly we're 17-7. Like, they were 17-0 down, looking really rattled and in a pretty deep hole, and then they immediately get the ball back, and it's a 10-point game. And then they bring it back to quite close, and then then a bunch of weird turnovers and plays break either way, and the Ravens ended up going away by the end of it. But this was like the game where, look, everything we said heading into this game, as good as the Patriots have been, they really haven't faced A, anybody, B, any quarterback, and C, something this unique. All three of which I think kind of played a factor into it.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what the Ravens did offensively, I mean, it's a fine line both ways though too. I think. I mean, they're a third down early on, and Chris mentioned this, like Lamar making that play while getting hit, awesome. There was a play late in the game where the Patriots go zero blitz. This was like everybody saw it, and again, the Sunday Night Football broadcast, fantastic job showing it. You could see the defense, you see that there's no safeties, you know what's coming. It was the thing that this was ghost time. This was what spooked Darnold into 4 picks. And Lamar stands in there and makes a big-time throw to Mark Andrews.
Jump ball to Mark Andrews.
Yeah. But not a jump. I mean, that was a well-placed.
I mean, it was jump ball as well.
No, it was up and away from coverage. It was a great throw.
Yeah, well, it was a play that required your tight end to jump higher than the other guy.
Well, jump ball implies 20-80 ball. That was a great throw. Anyway, it was a bunch of key third downs. There was the 4th down conversion that may have been an offensive pass interference.
Whatever.
That
pass interference is like it's insane now.
That doesn't
There's
exist
no
in
rhyme
the
or
NFL
reason
now.
anywhere.
But the Ravens kept, like, there was a bunch of like must-make plays that the Ravens offense made to sustain offense, right? And I think that's a lot of what you need against New England. It's key third downs, key 4th downs, whatever it might be. The aggressiveness going forward on 4th down. So Harbaugh continues to make a lot of the right decisions as far as that aggressiveness goes, and that's how you beat teams like New England.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots are still really good. You're going to need to play well to beat them. But I think this just clearly showed that their sort of statistics and their record earlier in the season was at least somewhat inflated by the fact that they really hadn't faced any challenge yet.
I just want to say, I honestly, I think the defense was never going to give up 4 points per game.
Of course.
That was pretty obvious. And they're going to face Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott and all these much better quarterbacks.
That was a really good – so maybe it's just because I kind of like Stranger Things, the show, but that was a really good like segment graphic thing that the broadcast did where they showed here's the quarterbacks they faced the first half of the season.
Yeah, right.
And then you flip to the upside down, and now here's the bad monsters that are heading around the corner. That's like all of the good ones, so they're yet to show up. Yeah. It's like, I mean, that's a real thing. They're going to, A, face better teams, B, face much better quarterbacks. And we've just seen what's happened when they had to step the game up.
But I also think that their offense should play better they should play better than they have.
Well, they're late to the game this year in terms of, like, the Patriots have done this a few times where you head into the year and you're like, I don't know what this is going to look like. And I don't know that they know what this is going to look like. And then they figure it out midway through the year. It's like, okay, this is what the offense is going to be this year. This is this iteration of it, and that's where they roll. And then it becomes really hard to stop. Because the Antonio Brown thing, they've been chopping and changing with these receivers.
Losing all their fullbacks.
Yeah.
Having zero time. I mean, I think the only really bad personnel decision that they made was going into the season with Matt LaCosse and Ryan Izzo at tight end, and then an aging Ben Watson.
So I think just generally they're later to it this year than they have been previously. And, bringing in Mohamed Sanu, et cetera, I think it's going to take – they're still going to get there because they know what they're doing, right? But it may take them until the final few weeks of the season to actually figure out what this offense is supposed to be this year. And, the Patriots, again, kind of typically, the Patriots team that rolls into the playoffs might be a significantly different team on offense than the one that, played the first 3 months of the season.
Yeah, I mean, even they played with 11 personnel. So 3 wide receivers, 1 back, 1 tight end the entire game. This is a team over the last couple of years was more 2 backs than anybody else in the league. They love having multiple tight ends out there, especially when you had Gronk as one of them. So, yeah, they're continuing to kind of morph before our eyes.
Basically 10 guys played every single snap on offense.
Right.
Philip Dorsett missed 1 compared to everyone else, but the 11th guy was the only guy that rotated essentially.
Yeah, it was Dorsett, Sanu, and Edelman playing receiver with Watson at tight end. N'Keal Harry was inactive. I think they're maybe expecting him to be a part. To me, the Patriots' issues, they move the ball really well. overall. They struggled in the red zone and then the Edelman fumble. But as far as like moving the ball up and down the field after a slow start, they were fine. I wonder, they have not passed the ball well in the red zone at all for about 2 years now. I wonder how much they think N'Keal Harry, for all of his flaws, can be a contested catch red zone guy. And even if that's just all he is, he could be a big help. But I don't know. I don't know how ready he is.
I'm still genuinely fascinated by what he's going to be at the next level.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that is his calling card, this idea of contested catches in tough situations, and that's always a really low percentage play to be banking on. I mean, there was a perfect play in the Buffalo game, right? Cole Beasley runs a whip route wide the hell open against Quentin Dunbar.
That was the Edelman play from the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So everyone thinks of, for red zone threat, I need a guy to be 6'5". I need him to go up and moss a defender in tight situations, and the ball needs to be in perfect position. Or you could get a guy who runs really good routes and just have him shake the corner by 5 yards running a whip.
Yeah.
Like, get guys that can get open. They are your best red zone targets. Now, N'Keal Harry doesn't get open, but he did seem to be able to win those ridiculous contested catch situations at a rate that you shouldn't be able to do long term.
I think ultimately you just want a combination of both guys, right? You got the contested catch guy if you need him. You got one or two guys that can shake some man coverage. Right now, New England's really struggling in the red zone. I would say, just to discuss the Ravens offense, man, I mean, this was – you talk about having the defense on a string. Look, the Ravens, just because it was on national TV, I don't know that – it was against the Patriots, and they dominated for the most part. So you could kind of call it a breakout game, but this is how they've been running their offense the last couple of years. It's misdirection. I mean, Lamar with like the late mesh is so tough to defend. How do you do it? And his burst and acceleration is incredible. I mean, they're just so tough to defend, and that was definitely all on display for. And then you got Mark Ingram running downhill for 115 on 15 carries. I mean, it's tough to defend.
It is. That's what makes this offense so interesting, is that whatever you're going to see, it's different than everybody else. Nobody else is running their offense like this, and that in and of itself poses a massive challenge. Like the fact that the individuals within it are also really good is a bonus, but the fact that you're showing a team in the space of a week something completely different than they're used to seeing is a massive problem for everybody, including the Patriots.
Yeah. That was a clinic. It was also one of those games, like, I think Lamar made that really nice throw to Mark Andrews, but this was a lot of, open pass in the flat and open pass here and there. Like, it was, and it's his skill set.
Yeah, this is what we talked about.
That's opening up all of this stuff. So it's he doesn't have to make a ton of special throws every week. I love that he did.
His ability to carry the ball makes his life easier in the passing game because it's opening things up for him. So he doesn't need to be the most accurate quarterback in the world. When he is, it's massive, right? It helps everything because now you can make these value-add throws on top of all that. But just doing what he does makes the passing game much more manageable because it opens everything up.
Now, all I have to say is this would be a fantastic AFC playoff rematch whenever it may occur. Also, for the Ravens, they have only 2 losses. They're in the driver's seat right now for a bye, and then for battling the Patriots for the number 1 seed. They're 1 game behind the Patriots, but of course they have the tiebreaker. So this goes a long way toward potential number 1 seeding because the Patriots have this more difficult run over the next few weeks if the Ravens can hold pace, or at the very least just getting their own bye in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the NFC is definitely deeper, but the AFC features 3 teams, I think, that could be really fun if they get to the playoffs, or when they get to the playoffs. The Patriots, some combination of the Patriots, Chiefs, and Ravens playing each other should be pretty special in the playoffs for them.
Yeah, completely agree. Jimmy Smith came back for the Ravens, by the way.
Look good.
He played well. When they're intact in that secondary, they're really good. I also love the way Chris and the guys on the broadcast highlighted Earl Thomas and the fact that he's not just playing center field.
I would not want him covering guys in man coverage.
Not necessarily playing man coverage, but his ability to blitz, drop into short zone. That's where I would like his ability to do some different things there.
That was a really freaking smart thing by the Patriots offense to basically to be able to manufacture moving Earl Thomas out from where he's dangerous as hell to where he's basically trying to play cornerback against a guy you think is a superior receiver because, James White is one of the best receiving running backs in the NFL. Manufacturing that matchup, which in and of itself is beneficial, but B, having the knock-on effect of taking the most dangerous center fielder off the field and moving him over to the side is genius.
Yeah, that was well done. Earl did have a pick on Brady's prayer back in the fourth quarter. Playing center field. And not even that deep. He was a little shallow, right? Flipped his hips and did the whole.
Which is what he does, right? That's what I'm saying.
Being
able to take him out of that scenario was incredibly smart.
The other thing to keep an eye on, you talk about how difficult it is to play receiver with Brady and like the being on the same page. Sanu had 9 catches or whatever he had, and there was still multiple plays where you're just like, you can tell they're not on the same page still. So that's the other kind of like work in progress with New England's offense.
Yep.
So that's it.
Done.
Week 9 in the books, other than primetime dimes, Monday Night Football, Giants and Cowboys. It's going to be an awesome game. It's my preview.
Okay, fair enough.
I think Daniel Jones does a lot of nice things and makes people happy tonight.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think he throws the ball to Dallas defenders at least, let's say once.
No.
Once. Definitely going to happen once.
He's going to make some huge plays.
He may do that as well, but he's definitely going to throw the ball to a Dallas defender at least once.
Or it's going to be one of those games where it's like, hey, maybe Daniel Jones is really good. Oh, maybe he's not that good. Maybe he's good. Maybe he's not that good.
Well, that's every Daniel Jones game.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy Monday Night Football. Thanks for tuning in to Week 9. Are we going to be back Wednesday?
Yeah.
Back Wednesday with some Stevenson and our midweek look at
mailbag.
The mailbag and the rest of the league.
At PFF.com. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you guys Wednesday.